All right, everybody. It's almost time to start our webinar. We will start in a couple of minutes, but before that, I want to drop in, say hello, welcome everybody. I see we already have a lot of viewers online waiting for the webinar to start. There are a couple of important links if you haven't seen them before or clicked them before. If you want to join our WhatsApp group for further questions, support, anything like that, use the link above. If you are interested to see how to differentiate students in online platform, you can get a free teacher access to Edison Playground for 60 days. Great platform for math. And we will start our today's topic in a couple of minutes. So now it's time to still relax, maybe fill in the cup of water, coffee, whatever you like, and enjoy the ride. I will do the same. So just to make sure, uh, all the newcomers here as well know what we're going to do. So the live stream or the topic today, differentiation, will start in a couple of minutes. We will start at 11 Finnish time, 10 a.m. CET, as promised. But before that, I just wanted to drop in and say hello and mention a couple of links here that you might find useful. The first link will be to our WhatsApp group where you can ask questions even after the webinar. If you need some support or something like that, please join there. And if you're interested to learn, teach math in a different way, you can get a free teacher access to Edison Playground for 60 days using the link below. Uh, Further ado, we will start the webinar in just a couple of minutes, so hang on tight. Almost time. I see we're getting more people online all the time, more people joining in the WhatsApp group. That's great. Happy to have people all around the world here. And I hope you can get some new ideas. You learn something new today. And I hope you are brave enough to try this in practice. I still have a little bit left on watch before it's 11, so I'm not going to get the head start here. But we will start in a minute. And it's time. It's 11 o'clock here in Finland, 10 a.m. CET. Welcome to our webinar on differentiation. Leave no student behind. Once more, please join our WhatsApp group with the first link for further questions, support, all that, discussion with teachers all around the world. Uh, if you're interested to get a new way of learning and teaching math, get the teacher access for free for 60 days in the link below. And now it's time to get this webinar started. So welcome everybody, really great to have you here. First of all, greetings from Finland. Finland is a quite small country on the northern part of Europe. You can see us up there. My pictures are quite wintry. We are famous for the winter and snow, northern lights, ice swimming, as you can see in the picture. We are a little bit crazy. But actually, now today it's plus 25. It's really warm and nice summer weather, and well, I'm enjoying it. So we have a wonderful weather here, and today I'm really excited to talk to you about differentiation. Let's move on. The webinar contains two parts. First, I will talk to you about differentiation in general, kind of things that are related to it. What are the aspects you can differentiate? what is the impact of that to students and things like that, kind of the more theoretical background of it. I will also show you how we differentiate and support students here in Finland in Finnish schools. And then I will take a second part, kind of go into practical approach, how to do differentiation, give you some concrete tips and tricks. Also, that has two parts. I will use Education Playground as an example, what you can do online. Differentiation online is a lot easier than with traditional methods. Thank God we have technology. But sometimes you are not able to use the technology, it's not available, there might be other showstoppers, something like that. There are a lot of good things you can do without any computers or technology at all. So I will also mention those in the second part when we go in the practical view. Well, the first thing that came into my mind when I first heard about differentiation was that isn't that a lot of extra work for teachers? And well, it can be, especially in the beginning. It's a whole new thing. It's a cognitive burden for you. It may seem like it adds more work to your already overload workflow. But I asked this uh, from one of the teacher friends I have here in Finland, and she immediately answered to me, happy student, happy teacher. So in order for her to enjoy her work, she needs to see her students happy. And if she doesn't do the differentiation part, they are not that happy, and that reflects how she feels and how she sees herself as a teacher. So at the end of the day, I believe that it will give you a lot more than what it will take from you. And I think that's a good argument for differentiation. So basically what differentiation is, it is tailoring the content, the learning process, the product or outcome of the learning, and the learning environment where the learning happens to meet the needs of each individual student. Of course, you maybe cannot do that for each and every student, but you can maybe recognize group of students who benefit from certain kind of tailoring. And that's the whole point. We try to find a way how we can individualize learning in a group setup. Continuous assessment and flexible grouping are probably the two most important tools for this to make differentiation even possible. But I will talk about those in these slides throughout the presentation, throughout the webinar. Differentiation is, at least on my point of view, closely related to the famous theory from Vygotsky, tone of proximal development. And I think this kind of really well shows what is the impact of differentiation and actually why it is so important to differentiate. Let's look at the chart on the left. There are two axes, level of challenge, so how hard the exercises are or how hard the learning task is. And then we have the level of competence, how competent the student is. So there are two kind of downsides. If we do things on too high challenge level, students get anxiety. They are not able to complete the tasks. They don't feel confident. They get frustrated. And that's not something we want to do. Also, if we are working on too low challenge level, students will get bored. It also prohibits learning. We don't introduce new topics enough. So we want to find the optimal kind of balance between students' competence and the level of challenge of learning. The problem here is that you are working with a group of students. There might be 30, even more students in your class, and each student has their own individual print here. They have their own competence, they have their own needs. So this is kind of the difficult part here. Luckily, schools are designed to go by age groups, which puts the students roughly on the same level of competence. But from the practical point of view, we know that that's not always the case, and that's why we need to kind of adapt the teaching for some kids to kind of fulfill the zone of proximal development. Well, let's take a look at the picture on the right side. This is now zoomed in for the zone of proximal development. The lower dot here implicates the what students can do on their own without any help from anyone, not from the teacher, not from the parents, not from the peers. And then we have another dot above that, which shows what students can accomplish with a little help. Vygotsky calls this scaffolding. So we provide some additional aid, help for the student to kind of get them overachieving their own limits. And I believe that this is what differentiation is about. Finding the right zone and giving the right tools to push the students kind of over their own limits, to get them a little bit out of the comfort zone to learn something new. So basically, when we try to find the correct balance for the challenge, we need to think about, should we reduce the level of challenge or should we increase it? And the only way to do this properly is to know your students. So it's the key for differentiation. And luckily, us teachers, we are really good at this. We know our students. We have worked with them usually a long time, or we will be working with them a long time. So we have the opportunity to get to know them. But this is the number one rule: know your students. Well, why is it important to find the balance for a suitable difficulty level or the right tools to support teachers? Let's look at the psychological implications that proper differentiation or the lack of differentiation could affect the student. Let's start on the left one. If we fail to help the students to meet their needs, it will cause them to have continuous failures. They will always kind of feel that they can't do things. They are getting bad grades and all that. They will get anxiety from that, and they will have the feeling that they are kind of remain behind the others, or they are stupider than others, or something like that, which is not the case. You might be slower to learn something, but that's normal. Each student, each human is different, and we do things a bit differently. So also it's normal that students learn in a different phase. It doesn't make you a bad human being if you take a bit longer to learn something. That's quite fine. But what this causes is, well, it gets the students easily frustrated. Students don't tolerate mistakes. They don't take risks. They are not willing to try new things. They are against them. They fear failure. They think that's how they are, and there's kind of nothing they can do to change that. They just are like this. They are labeled like a slow learner. If they make a failure, mistake, they recover from that slowly, and they feel important, that they feel that they are in the control, that they have the feel of control. On the other hand, if we manage to move students the right side, so we can get them the feeling of success, we can get them empowered, and we can get them the feeling that they're doing fine, they're doing as well as the others, maybe even better. That helps them to adapt. Uh, that helps them kind of to get the right mindset for uh, achieving new things, learning new things. They will get excited about learning. If they make mistakes, they will recover fast. They are able to adapt to new situations. Uh, it will cause them to be more resilient. They can take risks. They are willing to try new things. And they're also able to tolerate pressure and mistakes a lot better than students who are constantly failing. Actually, there are a lot of research on this, and there are a lot of names for these two categories. You can find this if you research for self-efficacy. So the right side is students with high self-efficacy, the left side is students with low self-efficacy. This also has to do with self-confidence. And these same topics can be found also if you look into growth mindset. It's basically all the same thing going on all the time. So if we manage to shift students to the right side, to get them the feeling of success, it will actually start to pile up and the students will start to get more successful. And this is why differentiation is really important. Well, let's shift our view for a little while in the Finnish schools. Uh, I think this is interesting, and I hope it's interesting to a lot of you as well. So, what is actually written in the curriculum in Finland, the national curriculum, is the three steps of support that we need to give to students in schools. And the first step is general support, which is for all the students. Each and every student in school are entitled to general support. And that is basically differentiation. So our teachers in Finland are entitled to differentiate students by the national curriculum. Then there is a second step, which is enhanced support. And that is reserved for the students who actually are kind of lacking more behind. There are certainly some difficulties that cannot be overcome already with just the traditional differentiation, and they might need more resources to overcome those problems, like special educational needs teacher or some assistant or something like that. The important thing here is that before students get the enhanced support, there needs to be a pedagogical plan made to that student. So there is kind of clear goals what we want to achieve with enhanced support. Then there is the third step, special needs support. And that is only for students who have this pedagogical report, which is made by the special educational needs teacher and the multi-professional team. So kind of we aim to target the most difficult parts of that students. And when you move up on the steps, it means that it increases the special needs pedagogics. It increases the longevity of the treatment or the help, also the intensity of the help, and it makes the help differentiation support more individual for targeted students. But there is a lot of things we can already achieve in the first step in the differentiation. I wanted to bring this up because I don't want you to get too stressed out about kind of the differentiation. There are certainly you are us teachers. We are not gods. We can't just kind of change everything, but we might need some help to change kind of big things. So I don't want you to feel failure if there are some students who are still not maybe able to pick up things after you have differentiated them as well as you can. Even we in Finland, we recognize that it's not possible to do everything by one teacher in a huge class, but there needs to be additional steps to provide more help. So that's kind of deeper differentiation for those students. All right. When we differentiate, we can, like I said in the definition, we can differentiate the content, process of learning, the outcome or product of the learning, and the learning environment. So let's take a closer look on each of these. First of all, I think it's really important to recognize what is the most important, essential part, the knowledge that the students need to learn. That's the core. This applies to kind of individual tasks or exercises that you are projects, if you will, that you are conducting with the students, but it also concerns the whole education. Actually talked again to one teacher, and I was really curious how they carried out differentiation during remote teaching. Because remote teaching is already a new thing for students and teachers, already overloading. So I asked, how did you do this uh, when you started the remote teaching? And she told me that she was teacher for first and second grade, that they already decided when the remote teaching started that the most important things to learn in first and second grade is learn to read and learn to count. So language and math. And that's what they concentrated on. Out of everything else was secondary at that point. So they prioritized what they were teaching. But it's also important to recognize kind of the prerequisites of the core knowledge. If the students don't have the prior knowledge, what is needed to learn the new skill, then it's not useful. They are not able to pick it up. Before we get there, we need to get them to learn the basics. And this is especially kind of evident in math. If you don't know how addition works, if you are not sufficient in that, multiplication will be super difficult and probably a waste of time for that student. It would be much better for that student to learn first how the addition works, how the number line works, and after that move the multiplication, for example. But then again, there are additional layers, kind of additional information that you can provide to the high achievers. Students who have really high motivation, they're willing to do more things, or who are already kind of too familiar with the core knowledge. So for them, we can provide some additional challenge. This is now actually the first time I'm talking about differentiating upwards, like really talking about. Uh, it's as important as taking care of the slower learners. Uh, Usually, the slower learners just tend to be more of a headache for teachers, kind of how to get them on board. But don't forget the talented students as well, who are already kind of doing really well, and they actually would benefit from more challenge. So, for example, in multiplication, you can already recognize some of the additional stuff that can be done. It can be higher multiplication tables, it can be multiplying with larger numbers, whatever. It can be multiplying with multiple numbers, something extra for those. So when you recognize these different layers for the substance that you are teaching, whether it's math or language or science or whatever, it makes the differentiation one step easier. Then you can actually differentiate the learning process. So all students are not equipped with the same skills to complete a task, for example. And we can give students different options how to complete the task. Usually, tasks involve time limits. You might give additional time for some. For example, if we are doing a research project, some students might benefit if you kind of direct them already to the correct reference material that they should use to complete the project, the tasks. Or let's say we have again the math example. Uh, for example, the addition or multiplication. Students who are struggling with the concept, they actually might benefit if they had tangibles on their desk that they could visualize the problem and see how it goes. So that's already differentiating the process. They don't have to do it mentally in their head, but they can actually see and manipulate the process on the desk. I think one of the key things with the process is guiding the steps, if there are kind of multiple steps, and give some goals for the students. And not necessarily just the end goal, but goals in the middle of the process as well. You might know when you are circling around in your classroom, students are solving problems in exercise book, and some students, they just finish up the page right away and they want some additional exercises. Then there are students who get stuck each and every time they finish one exercise, they get stuck and they don't know what to go. And you need to point them, okay, this is the next exercise you need to move through. So for these students, the goals in the middle of the process are really important, and that those small goals help them to feel achievement and help them to feel empowered. One thing that would be also really useful is to consider whether the work is collaborative, done together with peers, one or two, or kind of pair work or group work, or is it individual work? So that already has a huge effect on the process. And sometimes it might be a good idea to pair up high achiever with low achiever. And sometimes the explanation from the peer is more powerful and eye-opening than from the teacher. At this point, I'll go kind of back into the first slide with the explanation or the definition of differentiation. Here it is really important to kind of use your antennas in the classroom, continuous assessment to evaluate how the process is going. So not just the end product, what came up, is it the finishing up the pages on the exercise book or a project or whatever, but see who in the class need help. Do you need to adjust the exercise for them or the project, or are they good to go as it is? So it's good to stay alert throughout the process as well. Then let's talk about the outcome of the task. So that also can vary from student to student. Some students are really talented writing. They are basically writers already. Some students might not be that good with writing, but they might be great storytellers. They might be good drawers. They're able to draw really well or something like that. So consider that the outcome of the project task does not need to be the same for all. For some students, it might be easier to record the story as an audio than write it on a paper. Or it might be easier to write the essay on a computer than write it by hand. Especially, at least in Finland, especially boys have really bad handwriting, and that is a lot of times blocking them from actually concentrating the task on hand, but they're too involved with the handwriting and stressing that out that everything else gets washed away. Of course, you need to consider this in relation to the core content. If you are having emphasis on learning handwriting skills, then you can't just assign to do the same task on a computer or record it as an audio or video or make a play out of it or something like that. Then you need to actually concentrate on the handwriting thing. But if that's not the core essence, then you can actually vary and kind of know this, what are the individual strengths of the students. And this doesn't have to be all the time, but at least every once in a while, give them a chance to kind of express themselves in a way that is the most natural for the students. And then let's talk about the learning environment. So this is mostly a physical place where the learning happens with all the equipment that is available and also the people around in the environment. Uh, Basically, some students are really okay in a noisy classroom setup with all the hustle going on all around. They don't worry about that. Then we have students who have difficulties concentrating. They are constantly distracted with the noise, with the hustle around. And this is also something we can help them with. And I also consider this as differentiation. Sometimes it's useful if you turn the table around so the student is actually facing the wall and not the entire classroom. That might help them already to concentrate and finish the task. Uh, I know a lot of students are having headphones or something to block the noise around, uh, which of course does not need to be on when you are teaching and talking, but when you're working individually, then it helps them to concentrate. Some students really love to listen to music while they're working. Uh, Actually, I do it all the time. When I'm trying to concentrate and getting in the zone, I always have music on my headphones. Uh, then there are times when I recognize that it's distracting me and I really need to kind of concentrate, then I take them off and so on. But as you can see, there are different situations, different kind of learners, and we can try to help them with these tools. Uh, One more thing I want to bring up here again is the flexible grouping, something I mentioned in the definition of differentiation. So if you have a neighbor class, the same grade level, uh, and you or one or more neighboring classes with the same grade level, I think it's really valuable for you to join your forces. In this way, you can actually group the students who work in similar way, and you can target them as a group and not just as one teacher trying to target all the groups separately. So this is something which is fairly new. It hasn't happened that often. In my school time, it was always the one class and one teacher, but nowadays it's becoming really popular here in Finland that actually teachers are working together and there might be two teachers teaching a huge class, which allows them to then kind of concentrate on different parts of the class and differentiate the teaching for those parts. So that's something to consider if you want to be brave and try that out. And I think this is also a great place to mention how important it is for students, especially the ones on the red zone, those who are constantly having the feeling of failure that, and they need to be in control and they don't do well with the change. Uh, Please make them aware of the daily schedule. Make them aware already in the morning what is expected from them each lesson, each subject, and they can already orientate to that. And that really helps them to focus on the key things. It's something that helps especially students who are struggling, but it's also really useful for the rest of the class, even for the high achievers. So it doesn't hurt anyone. This is kind of the really basic trick that comes up if someone complains that they are having difficulties in the class. The first thing is, how is your daily structure? Do the students know that? Are they aware of it? Do they know what you are expecting from them from each class? So this is a really powerful trick for you if you're feeling that the students are not able to follow what you're doing and they are not able to concentrate. This helps. All right, it's time to move on to the second part of this webinar. So I will be sharing my screen every once in a while from Education Playground to pointing you, showing you how easy it might be to differentiate. So it necessarily doesn't take that much of your time. It doesn't add too much to your already overloaded workload. Uh, and I also show you how to do similar things without the help of technology. So let's start that and move on. First of all, I think one of the greatest ways of differentiating is actually giving some autonomy for the students. Give them the chance to choose things. And, and in Education Playground, we actually allow students to choose which exercises they want to complete, in which order, and if they want to left something undone, it's completely fine. Here, I must mention a lot of listeners here are actually already using Everything Playground, but those who aren't, we have divided the content into lessons. So they have the freedom of choosing inside the one lesson. So they don't have the huge autonomous pile of exercises, but they have limited autonomy, but it works. Many of our exercises also contain built-in difficulty levels, so they can choose when they start the exercise if they want to go with the easy route or with the more difficult route. And the exercise also adapt to the student skills, so that helps a lot. I think that one of the most beautiful things are that the students can choose which goal satisfy their learning goals. And in Education Playground, the goals are the trophies you can see below. But you can have the same goals also without any online platform. So this is kind of something that empowers and engages the student in their own learning process. They need to take the ownership of their learning when they do these decisions. Of course, they might need your help with that. Uh, all the students are not equipped to make that decision. But then again, you know your students and you are able to help them to set the goals if they're not able to do it by themselves. So let's take a look at how it means if we do basically the same thing using traditional methods. Uh, One way of achieving this, actually a very popular way in higher grades in Finland, in math, is create different tracks from the exercises. It's actually not just math, also science is quite heavily involved in this. A lot of science teachers do this as well in their classrooms. So basically, they have three tracks of exercises, and the students can choose which one satisfies their learning goals. So there is one track which shows the core essentials apprentice. So those are kind of the core essentials the student need to learn in order to satisfy the learning goals of the school and the national curriculum. Then there is another track with some applied exercises, with some additional challenge, and that's usually called journeyman. So it's already a step above the minimum learning goals. And then we have third track with a lot of additional challenge. Maybe some of the basic exercises are already left out, and that's for adept students. And as you can see, the track affects already kind of which is the great goal you're having in mind. Uh, let's face it, even if we would like everybody to be excellent, uh, that's not the reality. Some students are really happy with satisfactory grades already. So this allows them to actually choose what is the correct challenge level for me. Uh, this is something worth thinking about. The first time you do something like this, it will require a lot of preparations. But once you have done it, it becomes so much easier. And again, If you have multiple teachers teaching same grade level or teaching same subject, please do this together. You don't need to do everything by yourself. Then let's look at the other ways we can actively differentiate in Edgerton Playground. And I will also have uh, similar ways of doing things in traditional method after this slide. But now I will actually switch my screen to Edison Playground for a little while, and I will show you kind of how easily you can do these steps. The first step is adjusting the number of exercises in each lesson. So that's already affecting how much work you need to do in order to achieve the trophies. If you have 20 exercises, 50% of that, the lowest trophy is 10. But if you have 10 exercises, the lowest level is 5. So adjusting the number of exercises is kind of a really easy way to affect the workload already. Adjusting the trophy levels does basically the same thing. If we drop the bronze trophy, the lowest achievement, to 25%, we cut in half the demand that we have for the students. But it also gives them more options to choose from which exercises they would like to complete. Or if we increase the trophy, that's also another story. The third one is setting the trophies individually. So we don't change them for all the students, but we change them for some. And this is where it starts to get really powerful. If a low achieving student is having the same goals, but to set to different positions, they actually can be on the same level with the high achievers, but completing the workload that is suitable for them. And now let me switch and show you how to do the 3 steps here on the platform really easily. And here we go. I have an example 2nd grade class here on my screen. This is actually not the best example for differentiation, at least for considering low achievers. All these students are wonderful, but I will still show you how to do the differentiation. So you can see the lessons on the left. I will decide that I want to differentiate the lesson multiplication table of 10. Click it open. And to adjust the number of exercises, I have the eyes here, and I can close as many exercises as I will suitable. So I can just change which exercises are visible and which are not. So that was really easy, really simple, didn't take that much time. All the students are now kind of adapted to proper workload. The other option is to add more exercises. So if you are not happy with the number of exercises already, you can add more. So just open up more exercises. There's always some additional stuff there. Give them more exercises to work with. Then the trophies. Let's click the limits on the right side. If I want to adjust the limits for all my students in this class, I just write here, new limits 35. Let's say silver would be 55, gold 75, and diamond 95. When I click save, these are actually the expectation from me to students. I need you to complete at least 35% of the exercises visible in order you to pass this lesson to get the bronze. And for the high achievers, if you want to get the diamond, you need to work 95% of the exercises. Sometimes and often it's more powerful to just change these for some students and not all. After all the students are unique. So let's go for personal limits, add students. And let's add here student 12. And here we can define a special limits for this student alone. So I know that this student is struggling. It takes him a long time to complete basic arithmetics, and if there's too much work, student gets really easily frustrated. So it's counterproductive for him. So I will lower the barrier for that student. And now even him can get to the brightest trophies as well, even though he might be struggling with math. So let's save and save, and we are ready to go. There's no indication that we have one special limit there for that one special student. So this is how we're able to set the limits. So they are either adapted individually or for the whole class. All right, I'll switch back to the slides before we move on. And that was kind of changing the goals for the students. We didn't change much else, but we changed the goals and the workload for that. The fourth step is assigning different exercises, kind of warm-up exercises, or we call them preliminary exercises, or more difficult exercises, bonus exercises for some students. And this is a really effective way of giving different level of challenge, but also giving the chance to kind of help them reaching their goals. So for this, again, switch back to Edition Playground. And to give the easier tasks to start with, we go to users. We tap the preliminary assignments in the list or the bonus assignments, as you can see, a lot of students here, and we're done. Now we have differentiated the selected students either with easier tasks or bonus tasks. And what it does, it adds additional exercises in the set of the lesson. I'll show you. Multiplication of 10. The first 5 exercises here are now easier warm-up exercises. They are really discrete. You are not able to identify them that well. And these here now helps the students to reach the trophies. They don't make achieving the trophies harder. So if the student completes all the exercises here in the list, they will get more than 100% of the exercises. So it means that they can replace some of the most difficult tasks on this list and get the points from the easier ones instead. And oftentimes when teachers use this method, and we look at the most completed exercises in the class, the list of that, we can see that the low achievers are actually high on the list. And they are getting a really good boost for their self-confidence. And it actually starts to show in their exam results. It starts to show in their activity in the class, and it starts to show how their skills develop over time. So it's really powerful way affecting the students and make them feel good. The final way and kind of the most powerful way, but also most comprehensive way to differentiate is to give exercises from completely different grade level. This is quite traditional also with pen and paper style. So you can hand out exercises from previous grade level or grade level above. And this is also usually very easy in digital tools where you have all the content available. And for example, in Edition Playground, you can just copy a new course with new content, add your student there, and now they have Let's get back to teacher side. It's really easy to put one student to grade level above or grade level below. New course, let's pick up third grade, pick up my students from 2C, and let's pick the student 14 who's doing really well and put them in the third grade course. This is something that many teachers are using for their kind of really high achievers, but it also works really well for the low achievers. But when you do this, please rename it course and remove the grade level from the name, because it gets really frustrating for, let's say, eighth grader if they're working on sixth graders math, for example. All right, let's move on and take a look at the kind of equivalent what you can do on pen and paper. So first of all, adjust the number of exercises in the learning goal. Is it necessary for all the students to complete all the exercises? Let's say you have, again, the workbook, the exercise book, and usually you finish page 1, page 2, maybe page 3. Is it necessary for all the students to complete all those exercises? In digital tools, it's usually easier to customize the workload so that you don't need to say out loud in the class, okay, it's enough for you to just do half of the exercises. But when you're using traditional tools, you need to say, of course, that out loud. This is actually something that might affect the feeling of the student, but still it's better that they get the feeling of success anyway, it being able to finish that workload instead of the higher workload. I mentioned the tracks already, so help students to find their own tracks and goals. Even if you don't have different tracks of exercises for students, help students to find their goals. Of course, the goals should not be statistic, but students should be able to change the goals. If they notice that they aim too high, maybe you can change it a bit lower, or quite the opposite. If they set the goals too low, they need to be able to set them higher. The important thing here is that some students need more reminding of the goals. They need smaller goals in order to meet them. And little by little, they will build up the confidence to be able to kind of handle bigger goals as well. Great resource for getting differentiated material is exercise books, worksheets, anything that you can have both from grade level below and grade level above. Use those. It's not a shame to use them. They are just a really easy way for you to find material that might be helpful for differentiation. Also, if you have kind of old workbooks, old worksheets that you don't use anymore for the same grade level, or there is a competitor book series or something like that, those are usually a great resource for additional material. The tasks are usually a bit different. They provide the additional challenge for the sum. They might provide additional help for the low achievers and so on. So use those resources as well. Don't be afraid of mix up the content a little bit. One key thing here is what we haven't talked about at all is how to follow the goals. And this is something where digital tools are just stealing the show. This is time consuming and difficult to do otherwise. It is possible, it can be done, but digital ways of following the goals provide a lot of pros over the traditional tools. For example, this data is live. So when a student is doing something, completing something, they will see immediately that they achieved a step forward. And of course, you as a teacher, you are also able to see the same step by yourself as well. So here I just put together two examples of how we are able to track what the students are doing and if they're meeting their goals in a written playground. Just to quickly mention what we are talking about here, student diligence allows you to see how much work students are completing. This is useful because you can see if someone has already kind of completed the workload you assigned to them, or if you see someone on the far left, you can see that they are not completing the exercises. Uh, they might need reminding, they might need help, they might be struggling, they might not be interested, so hence they need the reminding. And you can also see here if someone is using a huge amount of time. For example, in my graph here, some students are able to complete the tasks about in an hour, and to complete the same amount of work, some student had to use a little over 5 hours. So there's already a huge mismatch between these students. Uh, I'm really happy that the students spent the whole 5+ hours working on the exercises. That's really wonderful. That's resilience. But it might become frustrating for the students. So it's something that needs to pay attention to. And then again, there are a few students that are not completing the tasks I gave to them, so I need to follow up on those. On the left side, we can actually see a great example of a lesson progress, how well the students have done, which goals they have met. And like I mentioned before, often we see the low achievers on top of this list. And you can see that there are a lot of diamonds here. All of them are over 100%. These students have been differentiated with the warm-up exercises. So they really got up the game. The first one with most exercises completed, 118%, has quite low accuracy. This is something that I would be concerned as a teacher. Of course, I'm happy that they completed all the tasks what they had, but still this is something that I would keep an eye on, that the accuracy is on orange and not in green. I can also see that student has always chosen the easy exercises instead of something else. But if we compare this to student 3 or student 4, we can see that there are some hard exercises, moderate exercises, or their accuracy is getting higher. So this gives me a really good look in my class and kind of which students should I concentrate on. Of course, there are students who need my attention as well. For example, the last one on the list without a trophy. So they didn't met the goal I set to them. This is actually something that, again, I discussed one of the teacher colleagues here in Finland and how they handled differentiation during the remote teaching. And she told me that she had 10 students that she knew that she needs to pay special attention to. And she agreed an individual time with each of them once in the morning and once in the afternoon. Short call, but still in the morning to say good morning, wake up, let's start the day, and set the goals for today. And then in the afternoon to check if they have met the goals or not. And she was clever, and she knew her students, of course. She set the first meeting to, I think it was 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And she called the student, and often they said, often the teacher saw that students didn't meet the goals that they set together in the morning. So she reminded, okay, hey, I see you didn't quite get there yet, but I'll give you another call in 2 hours, and let's fix the situation by then. And every time when this happened, the student completed the task they agreed in the morning. So it's not just important to set the goals, but it's super important to follow the goals and react to them as well. Of course, this is a really extreme example of giving a call for individual students, but you get the idea. If we follow the goals on more traditional tools, let's say in a notebook, which is uh, old tool, it has worked for ages, it works well, it's reliable, but it has its downsides. It's only handled by the teacher, so students are basically not able to see their own progress. Uh, they can't see where I am, what should I do more, and stuff like that. And it also takes time to update the notebook, so it's not up to date all the time. Uh, a lot of teachers have adapted some kind of shared spreadsheet, Google Docs or Microsoft Office tools, where the students can actually put themselves on the progress bar where they are. When they have completed tasks, they mark it with the color or they just put an X or something like this. It's already a step forward. It doesn't require too many special uh, tools, but the problem is that the student is putting on the progress. It's not automatically from what they have done, but they are marking them on their own. So I would do what Ronald Reagan, the president of the USA, said during the Cold War: trust but verify. And that again brings some extra load for this. So it is possible to do the tracking on traditional tools, but if you have any digital tools to help you, please use them. It makes it so much more powerful. When it's real time, it helps the students better, but it also helps you. So, what are the key takeaways that you hopefully picked from my presentation? First of all, I can't stress this too much. Know your students. There are no bad students, no good students. There are different students, and find out what makes them happy, what gets them excited, and use that as leverage. So the goals are not the same for all the students. That's for sure. Uh, all of us, we can't be professors at Harvard. That's okay, but each student deserves a chance, and I can't stress enough about the psychological side of things. So let's try to make them feel good as well. Two, find the core essence what you're teaching. Uh, Maybe it's easier if I put it this way. When students come in today to school, to my classes, what is the one thing I want them to learn today? What is the most important thing? And stick to that. Make sure that at least that stays with all the students. That's a good place to start. Three, set goals and follow them. So, like I showed you, it's actually a great way for students to take more responsibility on their own learning process. When you set goals and you give them the freedom to kind of find a different path to meet that goal, but it's crucial that you follow them. If you show that you're not interested in their progress, uh, you're not that interested in their achieving their goals, then it loses interest for the students as well. So as long as you show them that this matters, this is important, they will feel that it's important too. And maybe the last one is the most important one. Uh, be patient. Change takes time, and cut yourself some slack. These are new things for probably a lot of you. These definitely are new to your students, and it takes time to adapt to new way of doing things. Students might not necessarily agree and accept everything at once, but slowly they will start to see how the different approach is actually benefiting them, and they will start to enjoy more. So you can start with small steps, try something new, see what's effective. And maybe something I should say here is same tricks do not work with all the students, with all the classes. So you might need to figure out and change your set of tools every once in a while if you get new students, or even if the students grow up. So I hope these 4 steps stays with you, or 4 takeaway stays with you after this webinar, and you're able to apply some of this knowledge uh, better, like in your own class, in your own classroom. I had a question here to uh, probably explain the last slide, so I think it's this one. So yeah, so the last step, be patient and cut yourself some slack. So when you introduce new pedagogics, which this probably is differentiation, it takes time for yourself to kind of find the way how it works. It will be kind of a cognitive load for you to think about how to figure out this new thing, how it affects the students. But when you do it for a little while, it starts to become more and more automatic for you. Like riding a bicycle, it will become automatic to you. But it's also same thing for the students. When you change things around in class, you will know this is from your students. They will get restless, at least for a little while. So when you start to do things in a new way, give it some time. Uh, After the first lesson, if you see that it didn't work, don't give up. It's not that. It just needs time to adjust. And you don't need to explode everything. So you don't need to change everything you do in the class. You can start with small things. For example, you can start with uh, cutting the number of exercises in some subjects or in some lessons for some students. Or you can start by just introducing the goals of the day. That can be the first step that you do. You do nothing else. You just introduce the goals of today in the beginning of the day, and you start from there. And then when you feel that you're confident, you can take bigger steps. You can start growing up with the differentiation. So you don't need to do everything at once. I hope that opened up my thoughts a little bit better. If you still feel you need maybe some help with this, want to ask more questions, we have the WhatsApp group mentioned in the beginning of the webinar. But we have come to the point of the webinar where I say thank you for participating. I'm really excited that I had the opportunity to talk to you, this wide audience across the globe. And I hope that you got a lot out of this webinar. Thank you so much. Uh, Before I quit this, I want to say have a great day, enjoy your week, and all the best for all of you. Thank you for listening.